Let me share with you a little prize I got back in 1997. Now, for years, when I was a new cartoonist, I dreamed of someday I will win the award for top cartoonist. So it was the biggest award you could possibly get. Let me tell you how I felt. Nothing. Nothing. I thought that if I ever achieved a certain dollar amount of net worth, I would be the happiest guy. The moment it happened, how did I feel? Achieving the biggest goal of my whole life. How did I feel when I achieved it? Depressed. Instantly depressed. Let me share with you a little prize I got back in 1997. This is called the Reuben Award, R-E-U-B-E-N, named after Rube Goldberg, who was a famous cartoonist of the past. And Rube Goldberg, whose name is on the trophy, so this is the top award in cartooning. So this would be like the Academy Award, but for cartoonists. Now, for years, when I was a new cartoonist, I dreamed of someday I will win the award for top cartoonist. And then one day, I won the award for top cartoonist. In the year I won that for top cartoonist, I also won the top award for top comic strip. So I won the top of my specific field, but also the number one in the whole field of cartooning. So it was the biggest award you could possibly get. Let me tell you how I felt. Nothing. Nothing. I thought that if I would win this frickin' award, it would make me feel good for the rest of my life, or something like that. I thought that winning this thing would feel just so satisfying. Like, finally, I've achieved this goal. The moment you win it, and it happens instantly, it really does happen instantly, the moment you win this thing, it doesn't mean anything. All of its value just goes out of it. And then you realize that winning this award was some people sitting around who said, who's going to win it this year? Well, who have we picked in prior years? Well, we don't want to give it to those same people again. This literally happened. Literally, they didn't want to give it to the same people who keep winning it, because then Calvin and Hobbes and Bill Watterson would just win it year after year. Because at the time, when I won this award, Calvin and Hobbes was, still in its heyday. Do you think any cartoonist would have won an award if all that mattered is who's the best cartoonist? Because it would have been, a Gary Larson, it would have been Bill Watterson for just straight cartooning. But because they wanted to give the award to other people, they decided it was my year, and it was just some people sitting around saying, well, if we give the award to this guy, he's got a big name, so it will attract people to the award ceremony, and what we really want is a good award ceremony. So the entire thing had no meaning. It was just something that they did to promote their own event, and I got dragged into it by being a high profile at the time. Now, similarly, prior to making it big with cartooning and with Dilbert, I thought that if I ever achieved a certain dollar amount of net worth, I would be the happiest guy. Like, all my life, I really, really wanted to make a lot of money. And I didn't know how, but I knew I did not want to be average income-wise. I wanted to have a lot of money. And from my earliest memories, I always have been aiming at exactly that. And then one day, after I got a big publishing contract, I got a check in the mail. I won't tell you how big it was, but it was national news at the time. There were headlines about it. And it was a big publishing deal because Dilbert was pretty hot. It made a lot of news articles. And I got that check. Now, of course, keep in mind this is over 20 years ago. So a check that's really, really big in 20 years ago doesn't look the same today. But it was a really, really big check, and it was big enough that I said to myself, I never have to worry about money again. It was actually big enough. It wasn't 25 million. That would have been nice. But it was big enough that I knew that if I didn't want to, I didn't really even have to work again. I mean, I wouldn't have lived I would not have been able to live in splendor for the rest of my life, but I wouldn't have had to work if I didn't want to. And when I had achieved that goal, even the specific dollar amount, that's the thing. I had a specific dollar amount and I hit it, and it happened sort of all at once. The moment it happened, how did I feel? Achieving the biggest goal of my whole life. How did I feel when I achieved it? Depressed. Instantly depressed. And one of the worst bouts of depression I've ever experienced, actually. Now, I don't have depression, clinical depression, except a few weeks of every year something's going on. So I seem to have a periodic, every now and then a few weeks are pretty bad. But I don't have anything like clinical depression. I'm nowhere near that category. But this is the most depressed I've ever felt. And it was after I'd achieved my biggest goal. Why? Because that was my organizing principle for my whole life. Every decision I'd made in terms of career-wise was all aimed at this one thing. And then I got it. The purpose of my life disappeared. I was like the dog that chased a car and caught it. Well, now what the hell do I do? I was completely lost. My whole life I had to reinvent it, basically. And the way I chose to do it was following, I think, instinct, in a sense. And I believe that we're all designed the following way. That first you have to take care of yourself. Let's say you're in mortal danger, right? Your first priority is live. I got to get out of this danger. So you're not thinking about helping other people, right? If you're in mortal danger, you just got to get out of it. But once you've taken care of yourself, you can start thinking about maybe your family, people close to you, taking care of them. As things get better for you, maybe you take care of them. You say, well, what can I do for the town? What can I do for the country? What can I do for the world? And so I found myself just being drawn down that funnel, almost like I didn't have a choice. Because once I had literally achieved everything I wanted, because I should have had higher goals, I suppose, but I got what I wanted. And I immediately found myself biologically drawn toward making my impact more external. In other words, instead of getting stuff for myself, I was done. I needed to, just biologically, I felt the impulse to help other people. Now, I'd like to think that what I experienced is universal or close to it. That anybody who would be in my experience would start thinking externally, because I hope we're all wired that way. I just hope that's natural. And so I started to look for ways to find my, find my satisfaction and meaning by being useful to other people. And the second, one of the things that happened there is I got married and tried to be useful in the context of a family. Because if you can, make one family work, that's a pretty big accomplishment, right? If everybody could make one family work, it would be a great world. But during that time when I was making the one family work as best I could, I didn't have as much energy for the external world. And once I did, once I was divorced and things there were, I couldn't affect them as much, I literally felt lost again. Because it was the second time I'd lost my entire meaning of life. So at first I'd been chasing wealth, and then I got it. and then I wanted to have something like a meaningful, family life. And then once that ended, not in a good way, it was divorce, but once it ended, I had once again lost my meaning. And I remember actually the day that I got it back. And again, I think that it's biological. I don't think this was a mental process. I think my biology was, pulling me along, just the way it would pull me along to take care of a family. Once that wasn't there, it pulled me along. And I actually made a promise to myself and to the world. And I realized that at that point, I no longer belonged to myself, if that makes any sense. I belonged to the world, because any benefit that I could produce was probably going to end up external, because it was, I didn't have the internal reason anymore. And when I made that decision to realize that what I'm going to do for the rest of my time is figure out some way to help other people in whatever way makes sense for my particular skills, I found meaning again. And so when I do this, or when I write the books, it's a lot of work. It's not easy in a sense, but it has so much meaning that it's pleasurable in its own way.